So, today we're going to connect four stories that, on the surface, seem like they're worlds apart: a safari in the middle of a city, a global tussle for an icy island, an electric railway revolution, and the race to save a world icon. We're going to explore the common threads of innovation, ambition, and that really delicate balance between progress and preservation. Yeah, I know, it sounds like the setup to a really weird joke, right? But the answer actually gives us a fascinating look at the challenges and triumphs that are shaping our world right now. Let's connect the dots. So here's our game plan. First, we'll dive into an ambitious plan to bring the wild into the city in Lucknow. Then, we'll jet off to the frigid north to see exactly why Greenland is becoming such a geopolitical hotspot. From there, it's back to India for a look at a massive national achievement before we wrap up with the critical mission to protect the iconic Taj Mahal. All right, first up, a story that's all about reimagining the relationship between a city and its wild spaces. We're heading to Lucknow in Uttar Pradesh. You heard that right, an urban night safari. This is not your average zoo trip. The whole idea here is to create this immersive wildlife environment right on the edge of a bustling city, which is a total first for India. And really, the key word for this whole project is integration. It's all about blending ecotourism and conservation with, the realities of city life. It's a pretty bold experiment, creating a space where you can connect with nature after dark without having to drive for hours. And you can really see that philosophy in action when you look at the key features. They're focusing on controlled viewing, which is super important to minimize any stress on the animals. At the same time, they're making sure all the infrastructure has a really low impact on the ecosystem. And this part is key. They're not just building something new, they're also upgrading the conservation centers that are already there. It's a really holistic approach. Okay, so from Lucknow finding new ways to manage its own natural environment, our next story takes a look at how our global environment is changing and creating some huge new challenges and opportunities. We're going to shift our focus from a city forest to the massive frozen expanse of the Arctic, Greenland. So just to get our bearings, let's do a quick primer. Greenland is just massive. It's the biggest island on Earth. And while it's an autonomous territory, it is still part of the Kingdom of Denmark. But that last number, that roughly 80% ice cover, that's the real key to everything that's happening there right now. Okay, so this is where the story gets really complex. As climate change continues to melt all that ice, it sets off this whole chain reaction. First off, new, much faster shipping routes are opening up through the Arctic. At the very same time, that melting ice is uncovering these huge deposits of critical minerals, the stuff we need for all our modern tech. You add its super strategic location to the mix, and bam, suddenly Greenland is a major piece on the global chessboard. And you know what? This is not a new thing. The United States has been interested in Greenland for decades. We're talking way back to using it as a defensive post in World War II, and they even tried to buy the island outright back in 1946. Fast forward to today, and that interest is stronger than ever. Greenland is seen as an absolutely vital location to counter the growing influence of both Russia and China in the Arctic. All right, so we've gone from a story about resources just now becoming accessible to a story about harnessing power on a truly national scale. We're heading back to India to look at an absolutely incredible story of domestic achievement. Okay, just take a look at that number, 99.2%. That is the absolutely staggering percentage of India's broad-gauge rail network that has now been electrified. I mean, that figure alone represents a monumental feat of engineering and logistics. And what's the result of hitting that number? Well, Indian Railways is now officially the largest electrified rail network on the entire planet. This is a huge, huge deal, not just for transportation, but for the economy and, of course, for the environment. So how on earth did this happen? Well, the journey actually started about a century ago, but for most of that time, progress was, pretty slow. The real story here is the acceleration. After 2014, this Mission 100% initiative just kicked into high gear. They adopted what's called a mission mode approach, which basically means they treated the project with this intense, focused urgency to just get it done. Yeah, this chart really says it all. Look at this. Between 2004 and 2014, the network was being electrified at a rate of about 1.5 kilometers a day. Okay, but in recent years, that pace just exploded to over 15 kilometers per day. That's more than a tenfold increase in speed. It's just incredible. All right, for our final story, we're staying in India, but we're going to shift our focus from this incredible story of progress to one of preservation. We're looking at the ongoing battle to protect one of humanity's greatest treasures from all the pressures of the modern world. So, to really get this fight, you have to know about something called the Taj Trapezium Zone, or TTZ for short. Think of it like a giant protective bubble. It's an eco-sensitive area that was created by law specifically to shield the Taj Mahal and other monuments nearby from the damaging effects of pollution. And when I say giant, I mean it. This bubble covers over 10,000 square kilometers. So we're not just talking about a little zone right around the monument itself. This is a huge region where things like industrial emissions are supposed to be strictly regulated, all to protect the super fragile marble of these historic sites. And what's at stake here is it's priceless. The TTZ is designed to protect not one, not two, but three UNESCO World Heritage Sites. You've got the Taj Mahal, of course, but also the incredible Agra Fort and the historic city of Fatehpur Sikri. This is really about safeguarding an entire corridor of world history. But here's the rub. Here's the conflict. Even though these protections are officially on the books, actually enforcing them is a constant struggle. India's National Green Tribunal recently had to step in and issue notices because the environmental rules inside the zone just weren't being followed. It really goes to show you that creating a protected area is one thing. The fight to actually preserve it is a whole other battle, and it's happening right now. So that brings us all the way back to our central question, doesn't it? From Lucknow trying to balance city progress with natural preservation, to the global power struggle over Greenland's melting resources, to India's amazing progress on its railways happening at the same time as its desperate fight to preserve its past, every single one of these stories is asking the same fundamental thing. In a world that is changing faster than ever, how do we balance progress, preservation, and power? Finding that balance, well, it's not just a local issue anymore. It's maybe the defining global challenge of our time.